Hello, everyone. I'm Dawn Westmoreland, coming from Asheville, North Carolina, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, coming from WPVM FMLP 103.7 Radio Asheville. Hey, I have a show called The Empowered Whistleblower Radio Show, and it's about blowing the whistle on strategies to build your courage and resiliency muscles. Now, oftentimes we'll talk about trauma, we may talk about forgiveness, peace in our heart. There's so much out there that we can do to help other people out there that are suffering. My show airs Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone. Because it's syndicated, it may pick up a different day and a different time in another country or another time zone. You know what? It's been a year since Hurricane Helene in Asheville, North Carolina. It was the 27th of September. My guest and I she doesn't know this about me. She dealt with two hurricanes at that time, and so did I. I believe she has a mother. Shawndra Russell's my guest today, has a mother in Florida. I also had a mother in Florida. I was in Florida when Hurricane Helene hit. So, Shawndra, hello and welcome today. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Don.
Let's just dive in. People love stories. Okay. Hurricane Helene happened, and you had an unexpected twist of turns. You wanted to, have a break from all the trauma. I remember Hurricane Milton very well. We were without power in North Florida, without five days of power. That's pretty typical, normal in Florida, but it's not fun. And then we came back to no water, no electricity, all kinds of problems, flooding, damage. And you just wanted to have a break. Tell our listeners what happened and then what happened after that.
Yeah, thank you. So, this is so significant for me to be on here with you today because it is exactly to the day 1 year from being taken into an involuntary psych hold. And you just laid out perfectly the 2 weeks prior to this year ago. We had no power, no water, damage everywhere, whole towns washed away, people in upheaval, and not knowing if everyone you know is even alive. So, collective trauma for sure. 3 days of blackout. So, yeah, we had been going through a lot. And then here comes Hurricane Milton. And my mother is right on the beach. So, she's a mandatory evacuation, right?
What beach was it,
Uh,
Sean?
she's right by Daytona Beach.
Okay, so about an hour away from my mother.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We're kindred spirits in some ways.
For
So
sure.
she, being stubborn, being almost 70 and having two dogs, she did not want to leave. But after what we had experienced, I was like, no way, I got to go get her. Everything in my body said, go get her.
Go get her.
Go
Yep.
get her. So I'm the only car driving into the belly of the beast. This is the day before Milton's hitting. You can see the clouds circling
Mm-hmm.
the ocean, right? And it's just like I felt like I had to do this. Like she really didn't want to come. She, all these things, but I felt compelled. So we drive up to Savannah. That's as far as we could get north. I couldn't even get to Asheville. The drive, you have to go in the back roads, no highways, or it's dead stop traffic, or it's very dangerous. Actually, on the way down, I saw 8 accidents. I mean, it was like Mad Max. People are just driving. I mean, cars flipping. It was like cinematic. So yeah, I
Mm.
evacuate her to Savannah. We get to Savannah. I used to live there for 10 years. So she knows it really well. She loves Savannah. I was like, perfect. I found her 3 days of lodging through my connections. And I'm like, perfect. She can stay here. Then she can rent a car home or her boyfriend can come get her. But at least she's safe. She's good to go. And after that traumatic 2 weeks, then coupled with evacuating her, not sleeping for 30 hours, it was just a hot mess. And I had 400,000 sky miles. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just get out of town for a few days. Where do I want to go? Like, how do I want to reset? Because I had been running supply chains while I was here, to help with the recovery right after. So we were running propane to Nesbitt Church over in Fairview. They were feeding hundreds of people 3 meals a day, and propane was number one. That's what they
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
right? That, I mean, and then we had 3 propane facilities wash out. So propane was like,
Mm.
it was desperate. So raising money for propane. And then my former business neighbor, Palmetto Health, they needed help running oxygen tanks because no electricity, people can't plug in. They need the portable oxygen tanks.
Mhm.
So running supplies, coordinating volunteers, raising money, all that's going on. And yeah, I decided I need a break. I need a break so I can then come back stronger, help my community because, I mean, we can argue about how awesome the disaster relief was or was not. But when you're here and you're experiencing it, it feels very like we're abandoned. It feels
Oh,
very
it sure did. And so many important things you touched upon. Oxygen. My mom's on oxygen. She's 84 and a half. People have to have water to survive. It was utter chaos.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Apocalyptic. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked to volunteers that had helped clean up after Katrina and clean up after 9/11. And this is from their mouths. They said our aftermath was like a combination of those two things. And this is ex-military, volunteers, firefighters from
Yeah.
their perspective. So that's how bad it was here.
Yeah, it
So
was very bad. So what happened? So you got all these sky miles and you're like you were gonna take a
I was
day,
just like,
two,
yeah.
or a week or a month or
Well, I was gonna do a 3 day, like 3 or 4 day, getaway, long weekend. I've been to 25 countries. I've traveled
oh
a
wow.
ton.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to have this amazing job where I coordinated international travel for college sports teams. So, I mean, I've really been lucky and got to travel a ton. So, to me, jumping on a plane is like zen. Gorging on movies, order your champagne, like just having this complete, like amazing, time for just yourself. And I'd always wanted to go to Iceland. I'd always wanted to go float in the Blue Lagoon. And I had friends that had just been like a few years prior. So I was like, you know what? My poor body and my poor brain, after all of this and evacuating my mom on top of it, I'm going. I'm just going. I'm going to use these miles. I got free miles, like I'm just going to go. And then I'll come back and I'll be so rested and I'll be so, ready to tackle all the things that still lie ahead in Asheville. And yeah, I go to the airport. I go super early because I only had my passport card. And in my brain, there, I thought it was sort of equivalent. What's the point of having it, right? Like I knew there was help with like an expedited passport if you needed it. I didn't know all the rules per se, but I was like, you know what? I'm an evacuee. I've got my passport card. I've traveled all over the world. I have my regular ID. I've got a legitimate hotel. Like this won't be a problem. I'll just talk to somebody and it'll be fine. So I go to the counter and try to check in. Like I said, I'm super early because I anticipated there might be some extra hoops to jump through.
Mhm.
And the counter agent, I try to check in. She doesn't even look at my passport card. She looks at my check-in. She says, nope. And I said, wait, what? Can I talk to someone? Like, I understand you, but I'm an evacuee. Like, doesn't that factor in?
Mm.
She just went next. I was not a human. So she just tries to start helping the next person. So I'm like, okay. So I turned to the security guard. It happened to be a female. And I turned to her and I said, hey, is there anybody I can talk to about this? Like, my flight's not for like 7 hours. I'm really early. Is there a way to make this happen? She starts backing away with her hands up and she says, I don't want anything to do with that. So
Hmm.
so my body starts ding ding ding, there's some emergency signals going on.
Mhm.
And as she's backing away and I'm watching her back away, there are 8 cops circling already. Nothing's happened. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't been disruptive. And I went into fight or flight. I got really loud. I got really vocal. I started saying, I have a legitimate flight. I am an evacuee. Like, there's a TikTok video with 13 million freaking views on it, making me look like a totally crazy person. And yeah, it was I was kind of running away from them. They ended up tackling me. My whole body was bruised up and down. And that led to being taken to the local ER there and being involuntary committed.
Mm. Wow. And so we've talked prior to this interview, this chat about, being involuntarily taken into mental health. I know in Florida, which, I grew up in Florida until I went in the Air Force at 20. They call it the Baker Act in Florida, where they involuntarily can commit you for 72 hours and then evaluate you. So, do you know how many states, Shawndra, that can do that? Do you have any idea how many states can do that legally?
Everyone, all the states can legally, from my research, and I could misspeak, but from my research, any state can take you in the United States on an involuntary 72-hour psych hold, and only 24 states have to report this. So the numbers are completely skewed. We don't know how many people, we don't know everything, but the best estimates we can see is over 1 million people per year are taking into involuntary psych holds in America, and 600,000 of those are women. So when they look at, and most of the time when you get out, you don't know your rights. You don't know what you can do. There's shame, there's guilt. You have to get your life back in order because you can't talk to anybody. You're ripped out of your life. So it's very traumatic, no matter what happened to lead up to it. What happens inside and what happens after is really, really traumatic. But yeah, the estimates are that only 15% of that 600,000 are actually qualified to go, like, fit the criteria to be submitted to that. So that's pretty disturbing, right? That's a really disturbing
Very
number.
disturbing.
Yeah.
And what was it like? Would you be comfortable sharing with the listeners? What was it like? How many days were you there? How were you treated?
It was the most horrible experience of my life in so many ways. And, you know, the initial, of course, tackling and that violence is just, that's something, that's a whole different ball game. But once you're inside, at least this is my experience. They call it the D block, and it's this tiny room, kind of an L shape that has 7 different rooms for 7 different inmates, I guess you could say, patients.
Yeah.
And it's just completely dehumanizing. They put you in paper thin clothes. There's a shared toilet with co-ed. There's no shower. It's a nightmare, and nobody talks to you. That's the hardest thing. I saw a doctor for 5 seconds and he didn't even make eye contact with me.
Mm.
And that was my experience, like coming in, talking to a doctor for about 5 seconds, cops are everywhere. And my saving grace was one of the med techs, one of the nurses, went to the high school that I used to teach at in Savannah. So we had that instant connection because I was kind of pleading my case. I'm like, I used to live here. I was a high school English teacher. Call, the athletic director, call the principal. Like, I'm a real person, because they really try to make you feel like a complete criminal. And they don't ask you what happened. They don't ask you your story. It's just a decision made, and that's the path. So I was in the D block for about 36 hours. It was almost 2 full days and nights. And then I got transferred to, I would call a little bit slightly better situation. And I was put on a woman only ward. So that was a comfort in some ways. But yeah, again, nobody tells you anything. No, you don't know. I didn't even know about 72-hour holds. So they don't tell you how long you're going to be there. They don't tell you if you're a criminal, like if you have charges against you. They don't give you any sense of what's happening. And they don't say you need to talk to your lawyer. There's no Miranda rights. There's nothing. You're just taken. So it ended up being, I saw the child psychologist the next day. So like day 3. And he said, "What in the world are you doing here? Why are you here?" I said, You tell me. And he actually made a point to say to me, they wrote down that you have a tattoo as one of the reasons that you're in here. He said, I've never seen this in 30 years.
What?
So then the next day, day 4, another one of the kindest souls, because most of the people that I encountered hated their lives and their jobs, and it's pretty bleak. But this woman had life in her. She was young, she was still vibrant, and she evaluated me. The first person, day 4, that finally took over an hour to talk to me, to hear my story, hear my side. And it was like 70 hours in or so, and she said, oh, you're downgraded to voluntary, no question. So I'm like, sweet, I'm going home tomorrow, right? Well, they really, how can I say this delicately, they very much make you feel that if you leave before you're officially released, which you think that would be official, right? Downgraded to voluntary versus involuntary. But instead, they are like, well, you need to see this other doctor. Well, you need to do this. So that way it can be a clean discharge. So they really kind of convince you that you got to stay until they say. So I ended up being there a whole week, 156 hours. So double the time I was supposed to be. So why? I don't know. Why did they not let me see the doctor the next day? That I couldn't see him for 3 more days. Like, there was just so many hoops to jump through, and you don't know, like, what's on your record now, what happens to you later if something, you just don't know your rights, and you don't know what the result and the impact. And, it was terrifying for me to be like, who saw?
Not going. That must have been horribly terrifying. I thought have you done any research, Shawndra? You're a researcher to find out, were you supposed to have been given rights? I mean, there has to be some kind of rights that you're entitled to.
Right. And that's actually part of the work that I am doing now, to not only help prevent this from happening by having an emergency network that we are actively working to build an app, but also to know after, your rights, what was violated. I mean, do we have a case? Do the 600,000 of us have a case together? I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is that this can't continue, because it's modern witch hunts, and it's an erasure of women. And we know that they've always said we're hysterical and we're crazy and we're this. And this is such a easy pigeonhole way, to do this without following real procedure and real safety for, like, an American citizen. This is a circumvent. It's not jail, right? But you're held against your will, and so it's such a murky, that's what I'm finding. It's so murky, it's so gray. There's not been a ton of activism around it yet, because there's a lot of shame. I mean, it's hard to admit.
No, you don't hear about it, Shawndra. You don't hear about it much. And yeah, unfortunately, mental health has stigma, as we both know. And gosh, and if you're a man, it's, just from the conditioning and the culture of our men, and just not only in the United States, but worldwide. Yeah, for them to talk about it's even harder sometimes. Well, you've done some good things out of your experience, and I hate that you had to go through that. And the mental health ward is supposed to be there to help you, not to hurt you, and the staff there. And gosh, I hope that you were able to find some silver lining in all of this. And I think you did find it. But one thing I do know that you're doing is helping other people now. Tell us about your book. You got a book. What is it called? It's coming out. Where can we find it?
Thank you. Yes, I am almost done, super, super close. It's called They've Always Called Us Crazy, a movement memoir about storms, silence, and the system that tries to erase us. So
Wow.
it's really focused on the last year of my life, with all the upheaval with Helene. I lost 2 businesses. I went through this. My landlord kicked me out of my office space. I actually ended up losing my license for 30 days because of on the way down to evacuate my mom, I was speeding. of course. And I looked at the cop. I'm like, I'm the only civilian driving into the belly of the beast. You're going to give me a ticket? So, and then I didn't pay it because all the chaos that was going on. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a very dramatic year. And so the book focuses on that mostly, but of course, stories from my past come up to show how in the world the resilience is there to survive what I've survived this year. So really, and the reason I call it a movement memoir is because this movement to build a post-patriarchal world by 9/9/2034, 9 years. Okay. So that's like the big giant mission here. So the book is tied to that. And I'm actually calling it the lore book to shape this universe that we're building, that women don't have to be walking in fear, not only from involuntary psych holds, but think about the 500,000 women that are raped every year. And you start combining these stats: 600,000 involuntary psych, 500,000 rape, which we know that number is underreported too. We're talking 1 million minimum women per year severely silenced and almost erased when you think about their life and the trajectory of their future for both of these instances. And then just the microaggressions we deal with on the daily basis. So there's a lot of silencing of women going on. There's a lot of violence still, and we got to make some big changes. It's not okay.
So you don't hit me as somebody who's passive and is going to let life walk all over them. You've got your book, you got your mission. What's next, Shawndra?
Absolutely. So the Erasure Justice app is absolutely my biggest focus right now, because I don't want anyone to experience what I've experienced. And there are studies that it doesn't even work. It doesn't even do what it's supposed to do anyway. So let's look at this mental health trajectory and this process. It's not okay. And I told you I used to teach high school English, and I used to teach One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And that was in the 70s. Okay. This is 2025. We cannot, how have we not evolved in 50 plus years our mental health procedures? This is a very important, crucial element of our time that we cannot continue to approach it this way. So major changes need to happen. I'm going to be vocal. I'm connecting with other women doing work like this. And really, it's even the thing I like to talk about that's even the bigger mission is rematriation. And that's a word that not everybody's heard, but it's rematriating everything. And that is not about men and women. Everybody wants to jump immediately to gender, but it's about the feminine perspective of being regenerative, not extractive. No more billionaires. Whoa, that's a novel idea, right?
I don't know if we can do that one, but
we can do it. I promise.
anything is possible, right?
Anything. Everything's on the table.
So I have a question for you, Shawndra. Many people would want to hide their experience if they had one like yours, because the stigma, the shame that they might feel, that they shouldn't have to feel, but all these normal feelings that come up. Why do you feel it's so important to be resilient to help other people with what you've been through?
Well, I think what stands out to me is, if it can happen to me, I'm a 44-year-old white lady from a village in Ohio. I have my master's degree. I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. Like, I'm not on paper a person that this would happen to per se, right?
Yeah.
And for it to happen to me, and the violence I experienced, and the mistreatment, and the lack of care, and the way it kind of blows up your life. I mean, that's the thing, the aftermath. And my heart feels for these 600,000 women every year that went through what I went through, because your friends look at you differently.
Yes, they do.
Your business associates look at you differently. The world looks at you differently, especially me with my 13 million freaking TikTok views, right? TMZ ran a piece saying, look at this crazy lady. Daily Mail wrote a piece, and not one of these outlets had the, I don't know, care to actually try to find out who this woman was and find out
They
her story.
they wanted the sensationalism and the popularity of it to take off.
Yep. So it's been a year and nobody's really associated me with it. So you're really my coming out story of like, hey, that was me. I'm not going to be shy about it anymore. I'm not going to feel the shame because circumstances happened somewhat out of my control. Yes, my behavior is mine and I have to account for that. But it's like we do so many things in this country. We shove it under the rug. And it's way better to put it out there and be honest, be vulnerable. And I want to help heal these women. I want to give them hope. I want them to feel like they have a community. You know, the other day I was listening to a podcast where a woman's husband sent her on an involuntary psych hold because that's the other piece that's terrifying. And I don't even like saying it out loud because I don't want to give anybody ideas, but anybody can call you and say, hey, my neighbor needs to be put on a voluntary psych hold. Your husband, your parents, your siblings, like it is a weapon. It can be weaponized against you. And that is terrifying. And I don't think it's right.
Yeah, that is terrifying because they should have evidence. Yeah. Goodness gracious. How did all this build your resiliency muscle, Shawndra?
Yeah. I knew I was resilient and I played college volleyball on a scholarship. So 3 a days, throwing myself on the floor, being a lifelong athlete, there's so many lessons I learned and so grateful for being an athlete, quite frankly, because that helped me survive all this. And
Ah,
even Helene itself, helping a friend move out of their second floor art studio
wow.
because the
Oh my.
mud was 50 feet up, right? And so
Uh,
you learn quickly in the apocalypse that you've got to be strong physically and mentally. So yeah, it's stretched me in every single way. And being here today is a huge milestone for me to really speak about it fully for the first time and take that pain and take that experience and build good out of it and help people with it and just be a mountain. I've got my little mountain earrings on and I can be a mountain for others. I have the strength and resilience to be a voice in this fight.
that's great. And we need more of that. Shawndra, I'd like to thank you very much because first, you were authentic and I really appreciate that. Our listeners love that. And also, you were very transparent. And when you're transparent, as you know, it gives other people permission, encourages them, it loosens them up to say, oh my God, this girl's talking about this horrible experience in the airport and what she went through, and she's not ashamed of it. She's telling people and she got through it and now she's out there helping other people with a very worthy cause. So thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being on the show. Do you have any parting words? And how can we get a hold of you? We're down to the last minute.
All right. Riseofwampus.org is the website. And this is a movement. This is not just a website or a business. And you can share your erasure story if you've gone through this anonymously or publicly if you'd like. And we're just collecting stories and data. And we've actually built an entire universe called Wampusverse, where we're building the post-patriarchal world by 999. So that's our big mission. You can check us out there, and we're on all the socials as well under Rise of Wampus.
How do you spell wampus?
Wampus. And it's based off of the Wampus cat myth. Have you heard this?
Well, we're down to the last 30 seconds,
Okay.
so we'll have to
To be
continue.
continued.
To be continued. Okay. Well, thank you again, Shawndra. What an important message. And nobody should be discriminated. Nobody should have to deal with biases. We deal with it every day. So thank you for taking the courage, having the courage and the resiliency muscles to move forward to help empower women. And by empowering women, you're really empowering the whole world. Till next time, we'll see you. Everyone stay empowered. Remember, every day you have the choice to be empowered or disempowered. I hope you choose to be empowered. If there's anything I can do for you with resiliency, reach out. If I can help you, I will. If I can't, I'll help someone else. Take care and be well.